In this video, we'll give you our top reactions to Week 17, along with the top waiver wire players for those playing in Week 18. I'm Jim Coventry, joined by Anthony Cervino, and we are with RotoWire. Anthony, reaction number one. The Bengals stay alive in the playoff hunt with a thrilling 30-24 overtime win. Joe Burrow, 412 yards, 3 touchdowns. All 3 of those go to T. Higgins, 131 yards himself. Burrow runs one in. And Jamar Chase is the light man, 9 for 102. Even Mike Gesicki goes off as 10 for 86. What were your thoughts about Denver sending all this pressure, getting quite a bit of it home, but who cares because Burrow lights them up?
Joe Burrow is playing next level football. I know we've seen really nice seasons and they've made a Super Bowl run, but what we're seeing out of Joe Burrow this year, I get Cincinnati isn't winning their division and they're a long shot to make the playoffs. But I think there's a case to be made that Joe Burrow is the league MVP. It won't happen because of the state of the Bengals. But Joe Burrow is next to Patrick Mahomes is the second best quarterback in the NFL.
It's an interesting statement. It might be right. You might be right. But here's my blowback on it. I think Burrow's great. But you have T. Higgins, you have Jamar Chase, and basically, you can't cover both of them. You really can't cover both of them. And the thing that's beautiful about Burrow, and I know you know this, is the fact he gets the ball out so quickly. And Denver's critical error was thinking they could pressure Burrow and beat them. This guy is used to seeing TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith, used to seeing Myles Garrett, sees him twice a year. If you're used to that pressure, and Chris Jones, they used to see him in the playoffs every year. If he's used to that type of pressure and Burrow still can hang up 30 on the scoreboard, what is Denver thinking? That they're just going to send bodies? It's never going to work.
Yeah. And Burrow's never had a good offensive line. So like you were saying, not only is he accustomed to facing elite pressure and elite edge rushers, he's used to evading pressure anyway, because since his rookie year, he's perennially had a bad offensive line. And not only like the Denver defensive game plan, I didn't get it. Like, obviously, okay, you put Surtain on Jamar Chase. It was not only T. Higgins, Mike Gesicki made a few good plays.
Yep.
And then we also saw Chase Brown. He didn't have the efficient Chase Brown game. And after that Chase Brown injury, I felt like Cincinnati made adjustments because the offense took, I feel like, a drive or two. They didn't look right. And with Khalil Herbert, and then Joe Burrow had to take over again. There were a few times during that game where I feel like Sean Payton, if he was a little bit more aggressive offensively or even backed off defensively and instead of sending pressure, maybe drop some extra coverage back, we're talking about a Denver win here.
So late in that game in regulation, when the Bengals look like they had it won, they trot out Cade York for a field goal. Anthony, you and I were texting, and I immediately to myself said, there ain't no way Cade York's making a field goal, because I saw him with Cleveland, and he wasn't with a team for a reason. He's a horrible kicker. And there was a pressure kick, and he did what, he doink it? I think he doinked the post, if I remember right. And I wasn't shocked. I called, if there was a betting app I could have gotten on for a missed kick there, I would have probably put 50. I'm a $10 better. I would put 50 on that kick. I would have taken the odds and I would have walked to the bank. But here's the bigger thing at the end of that game. Denver. We're on a G-rated show, so I can't say exactly what I want about Sean Payton. But he was chicken. I won't put the second phrase on that one. He was chicken in the end of that game. He was playing, I don't know, not to lose. He was not trying to get a first down. They had 3 possessions late in that game. They could have put that away with a first down, and they could have done it. Instead, they're running these conservative runs. He got Cortland Sutton, and they didn't throw him the ball nearly enough. He had a massive mismatch there. Sean Payton, you were chicken, and that's why you lost that game. They had every opportunity to win, and I get it. People call him a genius, this and that. He's a really good coach. He's got a Super Bowl. Give him all the credit in the world for that. Done wonders with Bo Nix. Done wonders with really Cortland Sutton and a makeshift group of weapons. But that type of coaching, when you're playing the big boys, you've got no shot. Now, back in the day when he had New Orleans and his teams were better than the other teams, could have gotten away with that. Not here. What were your thoughts on Sean Payton at the end of that game?
So you're talking about exactly how I feel about the play calling on that exact drive. And you're talking about the current form of Sean Payton. And then you're bringing up the New Orleans days. Where's the Sean Payton that went for that onside kick in a Super Bowl?
Yes.
Because
Yes.
that Sean Payton beats the Cincinnati Bengals this weekend. And I don't know if he trusts Bo Nix. Because if he trusted Bo Nix fully, he would have not been that conservative. And I don't know if that's fair or not, because Bo Nix, he's had some speed bumps. He's won a lot of games. He's progressed better than I thought he ever would. I think Sean Payton should have put the ball in Bo Nix's hands a little bit more.
A lateral point next year, and I don't know what their backfield's going to look like. And I know it's been a mess this year. But I tell you what, people are going to overdraft Jaleel McLaughlin. And here's the deal. When Javonte Williams and Audric Estime are on the field, the teams that are playing them are playing the run. When McLaughlin's in the game, they're assuming it's a passing situation. They're still doing that. So McLaughlin has all this room to run. You always see Javonte and Estime getting hit at or behind the line of scrimmage.
Yep.
You almost never see McLaughlin getting hit there. People are going to overdraft McLaughlin. And again, I don't know who's going to be in that backfield next year. And they're going to have to get better presence at receiver or utilize it better to maybe make defense respect it. Anything on McLaughlin?
Yeah, and we saw a little bit of it this offseason because the fantasy community, they try to replicate what they know. And I feel like they were viewing Javonte and McLaughlin almost as, oh, maybe this is going to be the year we get Kamara and Mark Ingram. And what you're saying about overdrafting McLaughlin, they're going to overdraft McLaughlin hoping that that's what this turns into. The difference is I like Jaleel McLaughlin. He's not Alvin Kamara. There's a lot of running backs in this world. Not one of them is Alvin Kamara. He's a unique player. So I don't think that's going to be replicated.
So Denver simply needs to beat Kansas City, who has absolutely nothing to play for. Andy Reid sometimes will play his starters in a meaningless game for a quarter. I can't judge Andy Reid. He'd be foolish to play Chris Jones. He'd be foolish to play Patrick Mahomes unless his ankle is a complete 100%. If it's 98%, he'd be foolish to play him. But that's just me talking. I don't know. I think Marquise Brown plays. I think they got to get him reps. I think we'll see a lot of Wentz. There are people banged up on defense. I don't know what he'll do. What are your thoughts on how they're going to, real quick, on how they're going to approach that game?
Is there any part of you that says maybe Andy Reid wants to go out and win this game because maybe he doesn't want to face Denver? I get that they've run off a lot of consecutive wins that ended where Denver pulled off a win in October of last season. But I don't know. Like, this is a different Denver team. Sean Payton, Bo Nix, this defense is outstanding. I don't know if I'm Kansas City, I don't know if I want to face a team like Denver in the playoffs. And I might try to go out and win this game and put it away early.
You may be right. I don't know what he's going to do either. I don't know what he's going to do. But if they suffer one injury of any note in that game, it could doom their postseason because they need everybody healthy. Yeah. They're playing right now. And actually, I'm not even on them. We'll get to Kansas City a bit. I think that's a point later. So I will get to them at reaction 3. We'll continue that in a moment. But reaction number 2, though, right now, the Vikings whipped the Packers. The score wasn't whipped. It's a 2-point game. They whipped them, and they'll play for the number 1 seed at the Lions next week. Best case scenario, Anthony, what's the best record somebody might have predicted that the Vikings to be? 11-5 would be a best case scenario, you think?
I mean, considering the quarterback situation with Sam Darnold, 10 wins max. And I think the Vegas total was 8.5, 9.5.
14 wins. And they have a chance to be the home team throughout the playoffs with a very good defense. That's going to be interesting. Because even when they play the Lions next week, if they get 2 stops, that might be enough. Because right now, I don't think the Lions are stopping anybody. And Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson, even Jalen Naylor. Who wins that game?
Going into next week, I would say the Vikings, because the Lions defense is their handicap right now. And it's a large handicap, because at one time their secondary was a little bit erratic, but they were one of the better run-stopping defenses. They could rush the passer. They lost so many key pieces. The counterpoint is how, one or two stops by the Vikings. Are the Lions going to be able to stop the Vikings offense at all?
Right? That's the point. And that's the entire point. 2 stops and it's enough. 2 stops and that's enough, because that lets Sam Darnold make one mistake.
And that's the thing. Sam Darnold can throw the game away, right? Like we saw it a little bit tonight. Green Bay got close, and there was an almost interception or a fumble that got called back. Sam Darnold will make mistakes, but he's also playing well enough to overcome those mistakes. It's almost like he's getting the Vikings to a 2-possession lead, and then he makes a bonehead throw. But Sam Darnold, I don't know how the Vikings don't extend him moving forward.
That was my next question. And I said that in I did a little show earlier, and I was like, how do they not bring him back? 14-2? And you don't know what McCarthy is. I know I respect the heck out of Greg Cosell, and he thought that McCarthy was a project, and he didn't have any real reps this year. And that's the question. How do you not bring Sam Darnold back?
377 yards, 3 touchdowns. He took 1 sack. And not looking at the box score, I don't know where these yards came from. Like Justin Jefferson, 8 for 92. That was a very quiet 92 yards. But it's just this team they just hum. And Kevin O'Connell, during that final drive, that first play call, I think it was a play action to CJ Ham to pick up that first. That's Super Bowl winning type play calling right there. When you had to have that first down, when you're trying to kill the clock, your defense let the Packers come back, and that's your play call. And there was nobody by that fullback. He got 15 yards.
Yes. Other side of the ball, Green Bay, I'm not sure what their seeding is. They're right now they're 11-5. Washington, we're recording this during the Washington game, so it's still in question. We don't know what the result that's going to be at the time of this recording. When you're watching this, obviously that'll have dropped already. I don't know what the tiebreaker situation in Green Bay and the Commanders are. I will assume the Packers have to beat the Bears this week. But the bigger point is Christian Watson was out. Really not a big deal. They don't use him, weaponize him to the point where it's a massive deal. My real issue all year has been Jaden Reed. Jaden Reed torched his defense for 137 yards and a touchdown early in the season. I know they were down 28-0 early, and I know it was a scramble mode, and I get all that. But Matt LaFleur has always been known as a guy that can rip up the middle of the field when a defense can't cover. And Minnesota did not have the linebackers to be able to cover Jaden Reed. Yet Jaden Reed gets 4 targets, catches 1 pass for 6 yards. To me, that's the linchpin of this offense. They want to make this a Josh Jacobs-centric offense. That's not winning in January.
I get the Packers have attractive weapons at wide receiver. They have a couple of good tight ends. They're missing, you bring up Josh Jacobs and him being the center, the focal point of the offense, not going to get you anywhere in January. In a game like this, you're playing Minnesota, who arguably Jordan Addison's probably your number 1 wide receiver. I don't think Green Bay has a true number 1. Right. I think they might have an A number 2.
You're right.
This wide receiver by committee thing. Yeah, you can go beat the Saints. You can go, you can go beat those type of teams. But when you're playing the big boys, you need a elite playmaker. And I like Jaden Reed. I don't think he's that guy who can go take over a game. And I don't think Green Bay has it. And quite frankly, I'm worried about Jordan Love, because this version of Jordan Love, you're going to get bounced out of the playoffs in a half.
We talk about CJ Stroud saying last year he was Superman, and this year, obviously, he's hitting some kryptonite. And I've said all season, I've said what the problem is. Nobody else seems to know it. And one last time I'll say it. It's very simple that once they got rid of their fullbacks, teams play too high on him, and Stroud can't live in that world. He needs to live in that 49ers, that a couple of years ago Miami world, that Baltimore world where you pull a safety down and he can operate there. He can't operate a too high safety world. But here's the deal with Jordan Love. Jordan Love has this great schemer as a coach. Did they just hit a hot streak for 7 games last year? Because he was not good through week 9. And then I figured that maybe Matt LaFleur figured it out. But this year, none of that stuff he figured out is consistently there. Jordan Love, to me, looks like a good quarterback, but not a franchise quarterback.
I've had this love-hate relationship because that you talk about the early part of last season. He did not look very good. Then they start getting hot, and then I question myself, am I wrong about Jordan Love? And then we get into this year, and we've seen 2 editions of Jordan Love. Early this season, after that injury, when he attempts 30-plus passes, he throws interceptions. When he attempts below 29, he plays a cleaner game. Josh Jacobs usually has a good game, and they win. This game here, when you're trailing Minnesota, it seems like LaFleur knows that. He only attempted 30 passes, and they were trailing by 2 possessions most of the game. I feel like LaFleur is afraid to let Jordan Love let it rip because back in week 4 against Minnesota, he threw for 389, 4 and 3 picks.
I think a lot of the football community has held on to this narrative of Green Bay from the second half and in that game with the 49ers in the playoffs and the Cowboys game. They're holding on to that narrative and saying that the Packers could beat anybody in the NFC. No, they can't. Right now, they can't. I don't believe that at all. I don't believe they obviously can't beat Minnesota, and they would get roasted by the Eagles unless the Eagles decide not to show up like they did a couple of weeks ago. And the Lions, I know the Lions don't have much of a defense, but the Lions could outscore them. So I don't know. I don't really feel great. Last thing I want to point out, though, you did make a comment about Jaden Reed, and I get it. And people hate me for this because I know everybody loves Amon-Ra St. Brown. Jaden Reed is significantly more talented than Amon-Ra St. Brown. Wow. Significantly. And it's not close to my mind. And yet the Packers have not unlocked him. I give Ben Johnson all the credit in the world in Detroit because he understood St. Brown's a very good player. Very good. He has maximized every ounce out of that man. But Jaden Reed, the level of explosiveness that he has after the catch, if he was schemed up anywhere in the ballpark, the way Amon-Ra St. Brown was schemed up with Jared Goff, the numbers would be enormous. They don't play Jaden Reed enough. He's a part-time player. They play him about 60% of the snaps. Why? St. Brown was playing almost every snap, and until this year, he's playing about half outside, half inside. But Jaden Reed, they just have not utilized his skill set. How crazy am I with my statements there?
I don't think it's crazy. And again, it goes to, I feel like they want to run this committee approach and not really have a featured receiver. Like somebody like Reed, I don't know if he's had more than 6 targets in a single game, maybe once this year.
Right.
That's perplexing.
Yeah. I mean, you're probably right. He probably wants to run this thing where it's like, well, we got everybody. We use everybody. Jaden Reed's not everybody. Jaden Reed, you use him like you use CeeDee Lamb. You use him like you use St. Brown. You use him like you use these great players. But again, I just think you're probably right. You're probably right that LaFleur probably is misguided on how he wants to use these guys. Reaction number 3 is next. We talked about the Chiefs earlier, but the Chiefs offense really comes alive on the road against a pretty healthy. Now, Joey Porter is out, but the pass rush was all healthy for the Steelers, and they put up 29 points at Pittsburgh. But the bigger deal is, and Anthony, we talked about this in the preseason, we love Patrick Mahomes in fantasy drafts because they had Marquise Brown, who later got hurt, and they had Xavier Worthy. And we said those two, with their different types of speed, Marquise Brown is more of an intermediate speed threat that can make a home run out of that after the catch. Xavier Worthy had over the top speed, and we thought that would open up the entire offense. Now, Rashee Rice was there, but even that said, We're beginning to see glimpses of it, Anthony, because defenses know Marquise Brown. They don't like, oh, who's this guy? They don't. It's not that way. They have to defend them very differently. And we saw it. Travis Kelce had space, 8 for 84. They don't need Hopkins other than for a couple occasional possession routes, but we've already seen it. Marquise Brown is making an impact, and Xavier Worthy now, it frees him up. He's had like 11 targets in either last 3 or 3 of the last 4 games, but they're like highly schemed touches. But with everything else around him set up, it's going to work. And if Pacheco is not healthy yet, in 23 days, he probably is. They're winning the Super Bowl, Anthony.
Yeah. So I tend to agree here. Kansas City should three-peat. Now, what's crazy about Kansas City, right? Because early Patrick Mahomes era, defense wasn't great. They were outscoring you, win Super Bowl. The past, year, offense was not really great. Defense steps up and wins the Super Bowl. This season, I felt like we've seen 2 or 3 different versions of the Chiefs. Early on, it was very defensive heavy. Their defense starts scaling back. They're not running the ball great. And now Patrick Mahomes is starting to look like the guy from 4 years ago. It's like this team evolves so quickly and adjusts. And maybe and maybe it is a combination of Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes and that greatness. But I've never seen anything quite like it. Now, I want to take it to Xavier Worthy, because Xavier Worthy, if you remember Rashee Rice last year, his rookie year, Rashee Rice scored, I believe, 2 touchdowns or a touchdown in week 1, goes away, and then towards the end of the season, Rashee Rice starts picking up. Xavier Worthy, same thing, pops in week 1, kind of, has an okay year. And all of a sudden, December hits, 3 straight games at over 19 fantasy points in PPR, 3 straight games with at least 9 targets, 2 of which with 11. All of a sudden, Xavier Worthy no longer looks like a rookie wide receiver. And coming in, I just thought Xavier Worthy was a speed guy. They're using him everywhere.
Because they have other people there that are giving him the space. That's the whole difference, right? Before, it was all gummed up, because Kelce wasn't able to create anything on his own anymore. And Hopkins, he's great, but he can't run. But yeah, now that you add Brown in there and even the threat of bringing Pacheco back, it just opens everything up. Andy Reid could paint a masterpiece. We're going to do it. Go ahead.
I would say the 2 biggest worries I have, going into the playoffs, they need to start running the ball better. Whether you feature Hunt again or Pacheco, because Pacheco doesn't look right, you need to run the ball better. And Jawan Taylor, he might cost them the Super Bowl with all of the mistakes and penalties he makes on a game-to-game basis. I've never seen anything like it. He is their biggest Achilles heel.
I'm still hopeful that DJ Humphries, who pulled the hamstring after coming back from the ACL, he'll have had a long time. He's already missed 2 games and another 23 days. So if it wasn't like a horrible hamstring tear, he'll be back, and he is a serviceable tackle. That would help them a lot. Yeah. That would be huge. And getting Jalen Watson back at corner, who's been out since most of the season, everybody else kind of had to shift and take over, and they really struggled. Getting him back would be huge as well. Charles Omena, who will be a little healthier. Let's take reaction 3 and 4 a little bit quick. On his reaction number 4, the Rams edge the Cardinals 13-9. It's these divisional games, Anthony. They can go either way. But here's my point, and you've heard me say this. I won't bet the Rams, because I don't know which team will show up on any given week. But here's what I will point out, Anthony. In the last 2 weeks, last week against the Jets, Matthew Stafford completed 14 passes. 8 of those went to Puka Nacua. This week, he completed 17 passes. 10 of those were completed to Puka Nacua. Basically, it's a 2-man show right now. Yeah. Kyren Williams will get involved some games, 13 for 56 is not a big deal. Otherwise, he had been rolling on the ground. But basically, Cooper Kupp's a forgotten man. It's less than 30 yards in 3 of the last 4 games. 1 for 29 in this game, while Nacua was 10 for $129. And anyway, we don't know what style of team the Rams are going to show up in any given week. It looks like they have a good chance of winning the division. We'll see how the tiebreakers all shake out. That strength of victory thing. If it doesn't happen this week, it could happen next week, even if they don't win. So we'll see how that works out. But right now, if you're just leaning on Puka Nacua only, that gets taken away in the playoffs, in my opinion.
Yes, but is that they still have Cooper Kupp. The issue I have there is Cooper Kupp washed? Because
he's
it's not like
3 targets a game, right? You would give him something, right?
And it is he's had exactly 3 targets in 3 straight games and under 6 in 3 out of his past 4. I get you want to ride Puka Nacua. He's younger. Kyron Williams, he's reliable workhorse at running back. But when the game's on a line, like you're saying, if you have to lean on Cooper Kupp, does he still have gas left in the tank?
And if he doesn't, that'll get exposed in the playoffs. And last year we saw it. There were like these, that Detroit game, the game they should have won. We saw a couple passes just really just miss Kupp's fingertips. To me, it was like Kupp lost a nanosecond. And that's huge in football.
Yeah.
Because those connections he and Stafford were making in their sleep.
Yep.
And you lose a nano step in your 30s after a bunch of injuries, and it's very tangible. So right now, I really see the Rams as being fragile. And I really think they need Kupp and Nacua to be firing at a high level to have any chance of making noise in the playoffs. But if it's only one and the other one can't do much anything else, you bracket them. Because remember, the playoffs are hyper-specific game planning. Regular season, you could get away with pretty much what you want. Not the same in the playoffs. I'm concerned about the Rams. Sounds like you are too, but we'll see how that shakes out in the last week. Let's go to reaction number 5. We won't spend long on this either. The Ravens basically shut out the Texans 31-2. Derrick Henry, I don't know why he ran backwards. He took a safety. He did. That's one guy I never see running backwards, but it is what it is. We're not going to yell at Derrick Henry. But the whole point here, Anthony, is this. Patrick Ricard, the fullback, plays 59% of the snaps, one of the higher rates of the season. Houston is like Buffalo in that these are teams that you could bully them on the ground. You can get downhill and you could just rip them on the ground. And that's what they did here. They get the big Patrick Ricard in. They just put Henry downhill. And there are a number of teams that can be bullied. And honestly, the Chiefs can be bullied. That'll be interesting if they play each other. And that's the difference. And if teams overload to stop Henry, we saw Lamar. Lamar will just take off and go. They may not have to pass. This could be one of the weirdest teams. And I still think the Chiefs win the AFC. But this version of the Ravens, now that they've been using Derrick Henry correctly, bring on the snow, bring on the sub-zero temperatures, because this team is built for it, Anthony.
Yeah, Ravens hang 31 points, and Houston's defense, respectable, right? It's not great. It's not bad. It's a respectable defense. Lamar Jackson only completes 10 of 15 passes, 160 yards, 2 touchdowns, 4 for 87 on the ground. We know what Henry did, 27 for $147. I mean, this Ravens team, and we've seen it in other games where Lamar's throwing for 5 touchdowns. They are scoring at will in any way they want. And that's what makes this one of the more dangerous teams. On top of the offense, is it me or this defense struggled early? Is the defense starting to turn the corner at the right time?
You're 100% correct, Anthony. And I was also saying on an earlier show that fantasy people make a big mistake. They'll look at the team's season-long numbers. Oh, this team is 32nd against this position or 28th against this, and that's who they are. This is football. This game changes on a weekly basis. Now, some teams stay the same. Some teams are like the Carolina Panthers. They were bad on the ground in week 1 against run. They're bad in week 17. That's not changing. You're right. Baltimore, remember, they were giving up explosive pass plays every week. Those are gone. Yep. They rarely give those up now. They've always been good against the run, but they have really tightened up their pass defense. They lost 3 of their defensive coaches in the offseason. And this organization, it is so disciplined. They always are good at troubleshooting and figuring out how to patch it together. This defense is it was a bottom third defense through like week 8 or 9. Now I would say this point in time, they're a top 10 defense.
Anything on that? I mean, when it comes to throwing fantasy in here, because that's just what the numbers I have up. Since week 11, they've given up less than 16.9 PPR points to everybody but one receiver. And that was Malik Neighbors, who went off for 24. But, they shut down Pittsburgh, McConkey. Earlier this season, to put things in perspective, they were giving up 20-point weeks in PPR every game, and sometimes to multiple players in one game. And then since week 11, only Neighbors managed over 16.9.
Yeah, it was horrible, but completely different unit now. It can be fun to watch. Ultimately, though, if it comes down to it, Patrick Mahomes with the game on the line, right? That's the boogeyman. That's like the monster in the closet. That's Michael Jordan back in the days when the teams in the NBA Eastern Conference thought they were the real deal, and then they had to face MJ, and then we saw what happened. But hopefully, I want to see the Ravens make a run. It'd be so much fun.
If there is, because we have a competitive, if does Buffalo, or who would you put the money on to knock off Kansas City? Would it be Buffalo or Baltimore? Because I think it would be Baltimore. If anybody does it, it's Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and the Ravens. Because I just think how you beat Kansas City is Derrick Henry and Lamar Jackson, and the way Derrick Henry runs the ball, not the way James Cook runs the football.
I would agree with that. I think Derrick Henry is the linchpin. But here's the thing, man, at Baltimore, whatever they've done, remember last year they came out in that playoff game and they ignored the run, and they could have just ran it down their throats, and they didn't run. So if they come out and bonk again, yeah.
I mean, they had Justice Hill. That was the Justice Hill show. Hopefully they have it right now with Derrick Henry.
Oh my God, hopefully they're right. Hey, if you enjoy videos like this, please consider hitting the like button. Subscribe to the RotoWire Fantasy Football channel on YouTube. Also, you can check out our fantasy football content and rankings. You get a free 2-day trial, no credit card needed. Go to rotowire.com/Jim. Check us out if you like us. Join the team. If not, we're glad you stopped by. Remember, we do way more than football. We got pretty much every sport under the planet covered. RotoWire's got it for you. Check us out. Anthony, quick waivers. We're going to go over a few players. We'll rapid fire these because most people are done with their fantasy seasons, but some playing week 18. We want to respect you for that because you're playing here. And so real quick, Carson Wentz could get a start. If Patrick Mahomes out, watch it during the week. He can run. Quick thoughts on Wentz?
Yeah, I mean, Wentz is serviceable. He's going to have the weapons, but not the best defense. I'm only using Wentz if you're in a bind in a 2-quarterback league.
Next one, same deal. Mitchell Trubisky. If Josh Allen says this could be the Bills' bye week, they should make this their bye week because they clinch the second seed. So this would be a bye week if they want it. I imagine they'll take it, but I don't know. Trubisky would be the starter.
I would probably go Wentz over Trubisky, just for history wise. Trubisky has never really played well at quarterback enough to use him in fantasy. But again, if we're digging to the bottom of the barrel, this would be a 2-quarterback situation. I don't even know if I would go Trubisky in Superflex. I'd rather go with a positional player.
Yeah. Running backs. Still have a little bit of a list. Again, we'll rapid fire these. Amir Abdullah goes for 147 scrimmage yards against the Saints. I don't know if there's any way the Raiders would push back Madison ahead of him with 1 week to go. So Abdullah could literally be a top 20 PPR running back.
Yeah, Abdullah has been pretty good past few games, even with extra competition there. And you get the Chargers, who have a playoff spot clinch. So who knows if they're going to be coming out hard.
Khalil Herbert, Cincinnati Bengals, they do play Pittsburgh. Chase Brown is going to try to play as of now with an ankle, but no guarantee. He didn't finish the last game. Last time we saw Herbert, 4.6 yards per carry with the Bears. And remember, when teams, even if they're good against the run, they got to worry about Chase and Higgins. Anything on Khalil Herbert?
If Chase Brown is up, I think
Right.
Herbert might not be usable, because if he has a pulse, they need him out there to try to go win this game against Pittsburgh and make the playoffs.
Yeah, that's only in case Chase Brown's out. If he's out, you've got yourself, there's nobody else. Travion Williams, nobody else. So it would literally be 90% of the snaps. Next, if the Bills treat this like a bye week, this could be a Ray Davis or Ty Johnson week. My suspicion it'd be the Ray Davis show.
I would fire up Ray Davis. He was one of my favorite prospect running backs coming in, and if they give him the opportunity to be the guy, I think he can cash in for fantasy managers. I would consider him a locked and loaded top 15 running back if he's the guy and James Cook is sitting.
Cleveland Browns, Jerome Ford goes down with an ankle injury, doesn't return to the game. It'd make it really wondering if he would actually come back for a Week 18 game. If not, Deontay Foreman was more of the lead back. Pierre Strong is a receiving back, but do you really want Dorian Thompson-Robinson throwing you running back pass? Probably not much. So Deontay Foreman could have a use, but they are playing Baltimore.
Yeah, not a great matchup, but he should get the workload. If you're in a bind at the flex, I would use him.
Next, Michael Carter, Arizona Cardinals. James Conner couldn't make it through the game with a knee. Be stunned if he went out for Week 18. Trey Benson's missed the last couple games. If both of them are out, Michael Carter would be a 3-down back.
Yeah, Michael Carter's a solid running back. He flashed a little bit with the Jets. He's with Arizona now, and he's a good pass catcher. They get the 49ers. 49ers defense, they're really good against the pass. They got a little bit healthier in their secondary, but you can still run on them. I would fire up Michael Carter in PPR.
Antonio Gibson, New England Patriots is next. This is weird. Coach Gerard Mayo tells the announcers of the game that Stevenson will not start. Stevenson starts the game, but he only gets 2 carries.
Yeah.
And Gibson gets 12 for 63. A lot of that was in garbage time, but clearly Stevenson's fumbled 7 times through week 16, which is why he's in the doghouse right now. Anything on Gibson?
Yeah, usable player with the state of Ramondre Stevenson right now, and you get Buffalo, one of the easier matchups for running backs. So I would probably assume we're getting another limited workload out of Ram and fire up Gibson.
Jaleel McLaughlin's next. Look, Javonte Williams didn't get a single carry unless we had a couple targets. McLaughlin was actually coming on right before his injury when he missed a little time, but he came back again, 10 carries, 76 yards on his 12 touches total. So he's been playing well. Kansas City might not play all their starters. Thoughts?
Yeah, I like McLaughlin. It seems like this is his backfield right now. I would like to see him get some more, red zone opportunities as a runner, but he gets enough passing down work to give you a high floor.
Desperation time. Julius Chestnut could play a full-time role for the Titans if Tony Pollard sits out again, and Tyjae Spears suffered a concussion in this game. If they're both out, they don't even have another running back on the roster. They get a practice squad guy, but in week 18, I'm sure Julius Chestnut would probably get 15, 20 carries.
Yeah, and it's a matchup against Houston, not great, but we're probably looking at a ton of volume for Chestnut, which means he's a usable flex player or even a back-end RB2, assuming if both of the Spears and Pollard's out, it's all going to go to Chestnut. I think Joshua Kelly might be on the roster.
Right. Yeah, they did advance him. Now, the Houston Texans have I believe they've locked into the 4 seed. I think they're locked there. So, yeah, they definitely are locked in there, actually. And so they may not play a lot of dinged-up players, so that could be a better matchup than you think. Let's go to wide receivers. Marvin Mims has at least 65 yards in 3 of the last 4 games, Anthony. And in those 4 games, he has 200-yard games, 3 touchdowns in the last 4 games. Not the most consistent guy, but they're unlocking him.
Yeah, Mims is a nice player, and there needs to be other weapons outside of Sutton to step up. I know Vele had a few games. We saw Humphrey have a few games. I think this is the Marvin Mims show moving forward as the number 2 receiver or number 2 weapon, because they use him in a multitude of ways.
Alec Pierce, Indianapolis Colts. If Joe Flacco makes another start, look, it was always the Josh Downs show. Josh Downs was ignored in this game. Pierce gets 9 targets, 109 yards and a touchdown. Flacco can throw downfield. That opens their offense up. It was terrible against the Giants, that all said. Again, don't know what Pierce would really have for a role, but after that game, if Flacco's in, he'd be worth starting probably in a deeper league.
Yeah, Pierce is a lot more attractive with Joe Flacco as the starting quarterback. They get Jacksonville. The matchup on paper looks good, but to be fair, Jacksonville's defense has tightened up the past few games. But with the way the Colts offense is, they let it rip, especially Joe Flacco. So I think Pierce should be usable in week 18.
Calvin Austin, Pittsburgh Steelers, 4 or 5 receptions in 3 straight games, averaging 54 yards. He's pretty hit or miss. They are playing the Bengals, though, and they're probably going to have to score some points, and the Bengals don't have the best secondary.
Yeah, he's a dart throw. Obviously George Pickens is the guy in this offense, but if you need a desperation play, a volatile boom bust touchdown option, I think Calvin Austin could get one against his Cincy secondary.
CeeDee Lamb missed his first game on IR. Brandon Cooks gets 8 targets, most of his damage early, 4 for 52. But again, he could see similar target volume.
Yeah, I think this was a speed bump week for Brandon Cooks and the Cowboys offense. Philly's really good defensively, especially at home. Outside of these Philly matchups, Cooper Rush and this offense has been able to move the football. Now you get Washington, and I think their defense is a little bit fraudulent at times. So this should be a good matchup for Cooks and the rest of the Cowboys.
Couple of tight ends. First, let's talk about Tyler Conklin. Conklin has really been doing some damage. At least 5 targets in 4 straight games. The last 2 games averaging 6.5 catches, 58 yards, 1 touchdown. A lot of it in garbage time today. Tyrod Taylor threw him a touchdown, but he's actually been productive like the last 4 games. If you're in a tight end premium league, Conklin could help.
Yeah, this is a deep dart throw. Conklin has been okay at times, but when Aaron Rodgers focuses on one guy, which we've seen with Devontae Adams, it's hard to get these other players involved. I think that's going to be a different case if we see Tyrod Taylor starting.
And then last one, this is an emergency. If you're a tight end premium, 2 points per catch. Noah Fant is averaging 6 targets, 3.3 receptions, 36 yards over the last 3 games. And Fant has at least 3 catches in his last 9 games.
Yeah, Fant is quietly a pretty good player in this Seattle offense. And I think they need to look elsewhere than just hyper-focusing on their wide receivers. I was expecting a better season. I think we both were out of Noah Fant, but maybe he can close it out strong.
Exactly. All right, everybody. Thanks for hanging with us. We will get back for the NFL playoffs. We'll definitely see them. We'll be doing reaction shows after each weekend. We're probably going to make some preview shows too, Anthony. We're going to get fired up for that. So everybody, enjoy the rest of the season, and we will talk soon.